All right, if you guys are looking to get into real estate and you are a complete beginner, you have no knowledge of any of the topics in the real estate business, and you have no clue what it even looks like, then this is the video for you. Essentially, I just took a clip from our last webinar where we usually just go over the entire business, and I decided to put together a YouTube video that you're obviously watching right now. Every single point I had in that webinar so you guys can repeat it and watch it whenever you want. So think of this video as basically like a wholesaling mini course where it's about 40 minutes long and you'll understand every single topic of the business during the length of the video. So yeah, boys, let's just get straight into the learning part. Make sure you take notes. So the first thing, what is our method? Why is it special? And why would you do this over anything else, right? So our method is our beginner friendly process that has been tested dozens of times over. So each of the guys that we've helped implement this with, the thing that separates us from the rest is simply our marketing. You guys got to think wholesaling real estate is the solution for a buyer to not do the marketing themselves, right? So us as wholesalers, our job is to get really good at talking to sellers. It's to get really good at running ads or calling people or, running SMS systems or hiring cold callers. That's our job. We have to get really good at doing that and managing those systems so that we can find the deals for these buyers, because that's the whole value that we provide. So we know how to find the sellers. We know how to walk them through our acquisitions process. And the buyer side is the easiest part for us. We personally use Investor Lift, which we've been approved for, and we've been allowed into that program, which gives us access to over 6 million buyers. But even if you guys don't have it, which I'd imagine none of you guys on this call actually do, we have exclusive methods as well to help you find your own buyers that I'm going to be going over later on down the line. With that being said, guys, there's two sides to every single business, so not just real estate. This is basically applies to any other service-based business. You generate the leads and then you turn those leads into profit for your business. With real estate in specific, it's probably one of the easiest cash conversion, right? Because you generate a lead and then all you have to do from there is see if they're willing to sell their house to you, because you're not actually selling anything when you do real estate. So there's less friction in your pitch. So if you're not, a naturally good salesman, this business, can still be an avenue for you to be good at, because technically, you're calling someone or for them to sell you their house, right? It's not like you're trying to sell them on anything. You don't have to convince anyone to do anything. You're simply just being the solution to their problem and seeing if it works out. So as I was saying, most beginner business models that aren't real estate fail either because generating good leads is too difficult, or getting a lead to the finish line, so the cash conversion cycle, is too difficult as well. However, through the process of wholesaling contract flips, we're going to teach you how to successfully master both of the steps and then use them to your advantage so you can actually get paid, because that's the end goal with everyone here. So number two, mastering the acquisitions process. So this is probably the most important part of wholesaling real estate in general, simply because this is the front end. This is the outreach. This is what is actually going to make you money, right? So what you need to understand about acquisitions is that the seller needs to trust you as a person. Remember, like I said, they are selling you their house. You're not selling them anything, right? So they need to be like, okay, this guy's a professional. I trust him. I trust him with the responsibility in, taking over my property and fulfilling his side of the bargain and closing on the deal. So by using this call framework that me and Hunter put together, we ensure that we build the most trust possible with the seller and to have the highest likelihood of closing and less friction, right? So the way it goes is, first, obviously, you establish the beginning, right? Do these people even want to sell? That should be the first question you always ask, no matter what. Even if it's a warm lead, cold lead, you always double confirm, triple confirm that they actually want to sell. From there, you ask them, how much do they want for their property? We get this out of the way up front because it's the most important part of the entire call. You guys got to think, if the asking price is bad, meaning they're asking too much for their property, but the condition, motivation, timeline is all perfect, it's not going to be a deal still, because they still want too much for their property. But if it's vice versa, their asking price is really good, but the condition's bad, the motivation isn't really there, and the timeline's bad, we can still work with that and we can still make money as wholesalers. So we want to get the most important part of the call out of the way right away. So how much do they want for the property? From there, we ask about the condition of their house. So ask, open-ended questions like, walk me through your property, or tell me about your property a little bit, or in your mind, tell me a little bit about the house. That would make me better understand it as an investor. So what we're doing there is we're asking open-ended questions that they can have multiple answers to, right? We don't want to ask questions that are single line responses. We want to ask questions that'll get the seller talking. We only want to be doing 30% of the talking as the acquisitions rep, and then letting the seller do 70% of the talking from there. The reason why we do this is it's going to build more authority in the way we speak, and the seller's going to trust us more. And also it's going to allow us to build up more rapport. So if like they say something, funny, crack a joke, or if they say, something out of the blue, you can add on top of it. That's just going to build more rapport, and they're going to trust you more as a person. From there, once we kind of get through the asking price and the condition phase of the call, we go into the motivation, right? So motivation, probably, the second most important part of the call, because why does this person even need to sell in the first place, right? If someone has all the money in the world and they just have this property sitting, they really don't need to sell, right? Like it's not that big of a deal to them. But if someone, is missing payments, they're starting to go into the foreclosure process, then obviously they're going to be very motivated to sell. They're going to need to sell their property. So the way we touch into this is we build up the rapport during the asking price and the condition phase of the call, so like 5 to 10 minutes long. And then during the motivation process, we're going to ask deep questions. So if someone says, "Oh, I just don't want to be a landlord anymore," or I just need some cash," we're going to dig deeper than that. Like, why do they not want to be a landlord anymore? Why do they not want, or why do they need the cash for their property like right now? Why do they need it so quick? That's our job as the wholesaler, to get into that motivation and really decide and really find out, like, okay, why does this person need to sell? How am I going to help them do that? And why am I the solution to their problems? And when we can understand that, and when we can help explain that to the seller, that's when you'll make the fattest assignments. Because if someone trusts you, they're going to be more willing to sell to you. They're going to be more willing to do price drops, and they're going to be more willing to make it work. Throughout this entire process, we want to wrap it all up with the timeline. So how long do they actually want to take to get this whole deal done? So the way I phrase this is I usually say, like, okay, now that we went over, how much you want for the property, what condition the property's in, the motivation of like why you even want to sell it. Now that I got all these notes written up, if I take this back to my underwriting team and they come back with an offer that you like, how quickly would you like to close on this deal? What this does is it puts it in their mind that they have control, right? We're offering flexibility as a part of our service. When you do that, it's another selling point, like, right? We're willing to accommodate to a 21-day close. We're willing to accommodate to a 2-month close. It doesn't really matter. Through that, we can, wrap up the end of the call, schedule an offer call, and go from there and actually do our underwriting. By making sure we're using that exact sequence, we can ensure we get the most time possible on the phone with the seller and build the most rapport possible. So, guys, remember, like I said earlier, the better the rapport, the more sellers will be willing to work with you on the price of the property, meaning you'll get bigger deals, bigger spreads, and huge assignment fees. Like, we've gotten $80,000 assignment fees before. So, as another example, we had a lady literally turn down an offer that was $10,000 higher than ours, simply because we just had better rapport than the other wholesaler or the other buyer, whoever it actually was. The lady didn't believe that they could close on the property, but she believed that we could because of the way we addressed ourselves as professionals and the way we brought her through the acquisitions process. So hopefully that, brings it into your guys' mind how important this actually is. The next step is going to be estimating accurate repair costs. So this is getting into the underwriting part, determining how much a house is worth, how much we can offer. Accurate repair costs is really not hard. That's why I want to address it first, and everyone overcomplicates it. And the way we do it and the way we make it extremely easy is we just use this calculator, right? So everyone that's, watching and taking notes right now, write down that link so you can go back to it later, when you're actually making your calls, and you can use this as a rehab calculator. So we did not make it, but it's very accurate, just give or take $5,000 to, it's not perfect, but it makes it very simple for beginners. And I recommend this to anyone who doesn't have any like prior contractor experience or someone who just needs a rough estimate. If you're like a professional and you can calculate itemized expenses, so you know how much an HVAC costs, you know how much plumbing costs, and you're in the area that you're marketing in, you could do that because it's going to be more accurate. But for anyone, obviously, for the normal human being, just use the rehab calculator. It makes it 10 times easier. Number 4 is going to be mastering underwriting. So the rehab calculator was the first part of this, but underwriting in itself can be very simple or very complicated. It just depends on how you make it. In theory, it's extremely, extremely simple, right? Because we stick to the golden formula. So this is what buyers buy at. They take the ARV, they times it by 0.7 to account for their spread, and then they just minus the repairs. And then us as wholesalers, we just take our assignment fee off of that number. So locking up deals with that formula will ensure cash buyers see potential in your deals, and this is how we calculate ARV. So to calculate the ARV part, which is the fill in the blank of the equation, we need to go to Zillow and use filters to find similar properties, or as you guys may have heard in like TikToks or YouTube videos, comps, comparative properties. So if we have a 3.2, that's 1,000 square foot, we need to make our Zillow filters set to sold, 3-bed, and in the last 6 months. We will then zoom in on our subject property's general area and begin to find the comps. The closer the comp is to the subject property, the stronger it will be. So if you find a 2-1 that's fully fixed up right next to that subject property, which is also a 2-1, that's going to be a strong comp because it's going to be close. It's in the same neighborhood. But if you see that same comp, 3 miles north, that's not going to be applicable because it's 3 miles away. It's in the different neighborhoods in a different area. You don't actually know if that one will apply. So if we calculate the ARV at $200,000 after we do the comps, and we estimate repairs to be around 20 grand, we'll put that into our calculator or equation as follows, and we'll do $200,000 times 0.7. That's going to bring you out the number of 140 grand. We're going to take away our $20,000 in repair costs, which leaves us with 120, and then we're going to subtract $10,000 for our assignment fee so we can make our spread, and that allows us to put our max allowable offer at $110,000. So that number accounts for the buyer's holding costs, the buyer's repairs, the buyer's margin on the deal, so how much money they're going to make, and then it also accounts for us as a wholesaler. So that's why it seems like you're giving out lowball offers, because there's a lot that goes into it. But if you find someone with the right motivation, the right timeline, and the right situation that they're in, they will accept these type of offers, and people will be asking these type of offers. There's deals all across the country. That's why there's so many real estate investors. Number 5 is understanding the contracts part of real estate. So once again, this is the one thing that most people overanalyze. You need to make sure you're using a simple real estate contract that is easy to read and it keeps you safe. The one we use the one we give to our students and the guys in our group, we got it attorney reviewed, and it's been used in over 40 states. So to actually fill out the contracts, you can find them on YouTube. Your favorite creator, Working With Me and Hunter. You're going to use sites like DocuSign, PandaDoc, and eSign, and then you're going to send the contract to the seller via email so you can actually just sign it electronically. Like, we never want to go in person and get these documents signed. You can if you wanted to, but don't really recommend it, obviously. It's not the best way to do it. Make sure you guys have the seller initial the bottom of each page as well as put their signature on the last page. The reason why we do this is because each page has to be initialed to show that the seller, viewed it all over. And it just makes it legally binding in case you ever have to take some court, which never really have to do. Number 6 is finding the real cash buyers that actually perform on the closing. So a lot of people will tell you horror stories of like, oh, I got a buyer and I got the deal assigned and it was all good to go. And then this dude just went MIA when it came time to closing. So finding cash buyers is a skill. We personally use InvestorLift, but that costs us 50 grand a year. So we can only give access to leveraging that to the guys that we work with. But like I said, there is a traditional route to finding these. We recommend the following methods. So Facebook groups, just make sure you properly vet the buyers because some are really shitty and will just try and daisy chain your deal. 2, cold calling. So going to sites like PropWire, skip tracing around the area that you want to, sell a deal in, and then just call buyers. Software, so Dispo Genius, Investor Base, these are both cheaper than InvestorLift. They're still kind of expensive, like around $1,000 a month. But if you're doing deals, that doesn't really matter. And then networking events, that's very underrated. Usually they're free. You can just pop out to your local area, go to a networking event, shake some hands, see if you can find anybody who's selling a deal or buying deals, and just add them to your buyers list. Number 7 is going to be vetting these buyers. So you need to be able to vet every single buyer that comes your way to make sure you never get your time wasted. To do this, you have to ensure you ask all of the following questions. So do you have proof of funds or lending? Usually it's going to be like a bank statement or just a letter that says blah, blah, blah is approved to have a loan for blah, blah, blah by blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to have a signature at the bottom. Just make sure they send you a legit document. Don't fall for anything else shitty. You'll be able to tell if you actually see one in front of your eyes. And obviously, like I said, it's going to be like a bank statement or an approval letter. You're going to ask if they close cash or hard money. So cash means they're going to have a quicker close. They can close in as little as like 2 days, I've seen before. Or hard money lending means like 2 weeks on average. Because if they go through approvals, they have to make sure the lender does the underwriting on their end, make sure the deal works, and then they get approved and then they can close. What have been your most recent projects? So if they actually do flips in the area, send me a couple of those flips so I can take a look at them. And then number 4, are you okay with blah, 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 earnest money deposit? We have to make sure they're fine with an earnest money deposit higher than our earnest money deposit. The reason why we do this is if they decide to back out of our deal, let's say our earnest with the seller is $500, we put our earnest with the seller at $5 grand, and then we get to pocket that $4,500 difference. So it's kind of like a mini assignment fee in case the buyer decides to fuck us over. If they send us a proper proof of funds, they're telling you about their recent projects. They're most likely a vetted buyer. But if they give you hard times with any of these questions, like they have an ego or they just don't want to send it, or like why do I have to prove myself to you? Usually they're just bullshitting and they're not actually going to close on their deal. So don't work with those type of people. Number 8 is working with title companies and closing attorneys. So it's really not that hard. It seems complicated, but it's not. The process just can't talk. The process is the following. So number 1, you contact the title company and the attorney. Ask if they're familiar with assignments before you even work with them. If they're not, find another one. If they are, then send them over the assignment and the PSA. They're going to do their job. So they're going to do their title search. They're going to request payoffs and they're going to schedule closing so you can close on the deal. And then from there, just follow up 2 to 3 times during the process to make sure title comes back, everything's good to go, set closing, blah, blah, blah. And then number 5, send them your wiring instructions. And then once you get clear to close and they complete the closing, you get wired and you make your first assignment fee, which is the most blissful feeling in the entire world. Because I remember my first $20,000 check and felt like I was on top of the world. Felt like the man. Number 9 is just going to kind of briefly explain wholesaling land. So we don't really do this as a priority. Our strategy is really just to target everything. So we've done single family, we've done multifamily, we've done vacant land. So it's not a priority, but we do get it often. So here's the formula to do this. Buyers like to buy land at 10 to 15% of the price of newly built houses. So if a new construction house, let's say it's selling at 500 grand, our max allowable offer as the wholesaler would be anywhere below 75K or 15% of that price. And then, we'll be able to make our spread depending how low we get it. If there are no new developments, we want to comp out other lots that are similar. So if ours is an acre, we want to check recently sold, see if there's any lots similar to 1 acre in size that have sold recently. And then, 50 to 70% of that is what we would offer the seller. Questions to ask seller about land. So this kind of replaces the condition phase. If you're asking about a house, is there any liens or back taxes with land? They're more likely to have them simply because land is often forgotten about. Like people will buy it and then kind of forget they have it and then forget to pay taxes. So got to ask that question. Does that have access to utilities? So water, electric, gas. What was your plan with the lots? Usually when you ask this question, it unveil a lot of motivation. So were they going to build on it? Was it an investment? Did they inherit it from a family? Like how did they even get this land? Like, why do you have this? Number 4, are they buildable and what are they zoned as? So this will make it so once you have to actually dispose of the deal, who is going to buy my deal, right? Is it a multifamily builder? Is it a single family builder? Is it an industrial builder? Is it a commercial builder? That's why you asked what it's zoned as. Basically, zoning basically just means what can be built on this property legally. And usually the homeowner or whoever owns the lot will know the answer to this question. Number 10, this is kind of once you start closing deals, and this is getting into, bonus stuff that you guys need to know. So the last 9 slides were kind of more like the core details about the business. The next couple slides are just going to be about like more advanced topics, marketing, how to delegate tedious tasks, how to, do innovation, how to, structure a creative finance deal, more advanced stuff. So number 10 is obviously, like I said, delegating tedious tasks. So once you have things rolling, consider delegating the following so you can have this business running for you, right? So acquisitions, you want to hire a US-based closer at 10% per deal. Never hire a VA to do your acquisitions. It'll never work, right? They suck. You need to get a US-based guy that's preferably been in sales. 2, transactional coordination. So they'll just make sure the deal's closed. They'll handle all the title company communication, and usually you'll just pay them $500 per deal as a commission. Number 3 is an admin VA. So a VA that'll make sure the CRM stays organized and manages all the other guys to make sure they're doing their job. Number 4 is cold call VAs. So they work under the admin VA and they basically can just call through old leads, prospecting lists. They can re-nurture and they can generate more leads for your acquisition guy to work. Number 5 is going to be dispo. So you need a manager to communicate to buyers to sell off deals. Usually acquisitions and dispo get the same rate. So they get 10% commission per deal. So as you guys can see, at full scale, once you're running this business at 3, 4, 5, 6 deals a month, you're still going to have profit margins of above 60% because you got to think 10% for acquisitions, 10% for dispo off the top, and then your marketing costs. Everything else you're going to pocket. So 60% profit margin at full scale is insane. That's why wholesaling is one of the best things to get into, just to make 100, 200, 300 grand a month at its peak capacity. Number 11 is going to be marketing. So There are 4 types of marketing that I recommended with the price ranges. I also have exclusive price ranges listed to our guys that get in our inner circle. The reason how or the way we get these, exclusive prices is we go hand in hand with a marketing company. So one of my old roommates and business partners owns a marketing agency. So he can basically get all these rates reduced just because you guys are working with us. So number one is SMS marketing. Usually it's going to cost you like $1,200 to $1,500 a month if you use Smarter Contact and overpay for texts. With us, it'll cost $600, $800 a month. VAs, it's more of an intermediate level. So once you close your deal, you have some money to reinvest, hire some VAs. Usually it'll cost like $3,500 a month with data and everything included. With us, it's only like around $2,800 a month. Facebook, I recommend 1.5 to 2K a month in a management fee and then spend. With us, it's 750 plus spend. Google is more advanced. We spend 20 grand a month on Google. So it's obviously not for the people that are just starting out, because I'd imagine most of you guys don't have 20 grand a month to spend. If you're just getting into the business, that would be pretty wild. But you'll spend 2 to 3K a month on a management fee. It's a little bit more expensive because you have to build out a website, you have to do SEO, you have to do backlinks, all the intricacies that go into Google Ads, and then your spend on top. With us, it's $1,000 a month management fee and then spend. So recommended Facebook spend is about 3 to 4K a month. For Google, anything over $6,000 a month is probably worth it to run Google Ads. The difference between SMS, so the cheaper type of marketing, and the more expensive marketing is predictability and labor, right? So with cheaper marketing, it's going to come less predictable deal flow. When you want to scale and when you want to do more deals per month, you need to be spending more for high predictability, right? So cost per deal may be higher or cheaper with SMS, like $1,000 a deal, but it's a lot less predictable and more labor, right? So you're going to have someone sitting there responding to all the text. You're not going to be able to scale it up. There's litigation issues. Like, once you get to the point where you're making 10, 20, 30 grand a month, you reinvest that back into the business so you can actually make a predictable stream of income. You don't want to just close one deal a month as a fluke every 4 months, because how are you going to live off that, right? You want your business to be automated. You want to close deals when you're out of state. Like, I just flew from Dallas back to Philadelphia, and our system was completely running while I was there. Our acquisitions guy was locking up deals while I'm not even there. And that's what you want. You want predictability, and you want scalability, and you want automation. So that's why you trade, that cheap cost per deal for a higher cost per deal, even if it means spending more money. Number 12, I just want to kind of explain what it looks like to have a full scale wholesaling operation. So when you're doing 5+ deals a month. So to build a full scale operation, you need the following 5 things. You need 1, a predictable marketing model. So if I spend $5 grand, I know I get 2 deals. 2, a good team. So you need a good acquisitions guy that's in it for the long run, solid VA, solid dispo. And like I said, in it for the long run. You don't want to hire someone that's only going to be there for a month, because what are they really going to do? You're going to train them and then they're just going to leave. Number 3, you need capital to fuel your business. So you can't make money and then blow it all at the club or blow it all on a card. You need to actually make the money and then reinvest it right back into the business. That's what's going to make it scalable. Number 4, you need to have good systems to make sure everything is like super organized. And then number 5, you're going to need good leadership skills. Once those 5 are in place, you just basically rinse and repeat the process for scale. It basically goes like this, super simple. You spend more money on leads. You have too many leads now. So then you hire more people to work the leads. And then with that, you get the result of closing more deals. So then you spend more money on leads because you close more deals. And then you just repeat and repeat the process until it becomes at the point where it makes more sense to do some flips. You have so much money, like you might as well take these deals down yourself. So at full scale, you need to be a good leader, and you got to handle all of these people that come along the ride with you. Number 13. So these are more exit strategies. Like I just said, you want to introduce flips, stuff like that later down the line once you have more capital. Fix and flips, you can do 1 to 3 extra margin per deal, and then increase your holding time by 2 to 3 times. So yeah, you're getting 300% more per deal, but with wholesaling, you get paid in a month. Whatever, Hunter, how long does your usual flip take? Like 3 months, 4 months?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're holding it for 3 more months. But then again, you see Hunter's checks. He makes 100 grand per deal. I make like 10, 15 grand per deal. Number 2 is a wholetail. So with this, you'll get 50% to 125% more margin per deal. Essentially what a wholetail is it's a mixture of a fix and flip and a wholesale deal. So you actually do close on the property yourself, but then you just put it right back up in the market. So it's basically like reselling, right? You find the deal, you buy it, and then you just put some paint on it, make it look nice, and then throw it on the market. So it increases the holding time by 2x. Usually it takes around 2 to 3 months to get a wholesale done, but you can make more money on it. Depends on the deal. Number three is buy and hold. So depending on holding time, it can increase your margin heavy. Obviously, you need capital to do this. It's more of a long-term play. But you buy a single family and you hold it for 30 years, you're going to quadruple your money, like guaranteed, basically. Number four is holding rentals. So you can create cash flow for cheap. I'm going to show you guys how people do this with creative finance here in a second. I would never really hold a rental. I myself, I make pretty good money, and I wouldn't even bat an eye of buying a rental right now, simply because you need so much volume for it to even make sense. I would only start a rental portfolio if I can buy at least 10 to 20 doors right off the rip, simply because it's not worth my time to get property management in place, buy these deals, pay the property tax, and then, cash flow $400 per month. It makes no sense. But if I could buy 20 of them and cash flow 8 grand a month without me having to do anything, that could be an avenue. So that's more of like a long-term plan as well. Number 14, you guys might have heard this term being slanged around. I don't really like novations that much because they are pretty illegal, but here it is. So a novation is essentially getting the power of attorney to list and market someone else's property on the MLS. So you have a lot of moving variables, right? You're connecting a seller to an agent, and then that agent is connecting that to a buyer. So as you can see, there's a lot of people involved in this deal now. It's kind of confusing. When doing a novation, there are legal liabilities, like I said. So when you do your first one, if you ever underwrite a deal and it makes sense as a novation, partner with a seasoned investor, partner with someone who's done a novation before. You don't want to do it with yourself or like some random guy. There are also additional costs that come with novation. So if it needs a clean out, you can pay for it, or you have to pay for it. If it needs some paint, you pay for it. That's a part of your service. So that's how people actually lose money on novation sometimes, because they'll pay for the paint and then the appraisal will come back bad and you basically just lose out on that equity you put in the property. A listing agent will be appointed to handle the sale of the property. So like I said, you bring in an agent, and the benefit to the seller in this case is that we can just offer more money. So the way we underwrite and run the numbers for a novation deal is we get the market value of the property, we times it by 0.92, and then we just minus our spread for the novation, which is usually like 30 to 40 grand. And I would only ever do this in very specific scenarios. Anyone on this call, you're probably a beginner. Don't even think about it, right? Just know what it is. Don't even touch it, right? Don't even bat an eye of a novation. Don't try and do it. Number 15, same exact thing as the last slide. If you are a beginner and you don't know what you're doing, don't even bat an eye at this, but I want you to understand the concept, right? So creative financing, essentially you're finding sellers that are fine with being their own bank. So you are taking out a promissory note with the seller directly. So you're never involving a lender, stating that you're going to pay the seller on terms to purchase their property. So, hey, John, hey, John, instead of giving you 100 grand, I'll give you 150 grand, but I'm going to break it up into payments. I'm going to give you 5% of that 150 grand down, and then I'm going to give you 1K a month. And then at the end of the 10 years, once I'm done paying my 1K a month, I'll pay off the remainder as a balloon payment. Why would a buyer want this? Like, how would we ever have signed this deal? The answer is cash flow. So if we can get a property for 1K a month and then rent it out for 1.5K a month with a low down payment, no brainer, right? Subto, which is a whole nother part of creative finance, is the process of taking over an existing loan. So I like Subto more than creative finance, but I still wouldn't do it. So let's say the seller has a loan of 180K on a property they can't pay. We offer to take over his payment with the same goal in mind, cash flow. Subto sometimes is the only option a seller has. Let's say, someone owes 150K on their property and their property is worth 130 grand right now. If they list it up on market, after all the fees, costs, agent fees, whatever, they're going to be negative. They're going to come out of pocket $20,000. So obviously that doesn't make sense. What we can do as an investor is just take over the debt, so we're not coming out of pocket a lot of money, and the seller can walk away from their property. So we don't recommend this for beginners. Like I said, it's very complex. That's why I'm not going too deep into it. And I believe most beginners will waste their time with it. But if you ever hear it, that's why it's good to know the understanding of it. By the way, Hunter, I think your camera went out.
Yeah, dude, it started overheating, but we're good.
Okay, cool. Number 16, I want you guys to understand the buyer's perspective. So locking up deals with the buyer in mind will always put you in a better situation to sell your deal, to make sure it actually sells, right? Make sure it actually gets assigned. So for a fix and flip, a buyer wants to buy the property at 70% of the ARV minus repairs. That 30% spread that we just subtracted covers their holding costs, covers their transfer tax, covers their closing costs, covers their agent fees, and also accounts for their spread in the deal, which is why they need the discount of 30%. A typical buyer will want to make 30 to 40K per flip, depending on purchase price and ARV. For creative deals, a buyer wants to be able to cash flow on properties for cheap down payments without involving traditional financing. So, like I said in the last slide, 5K down, 1K a month, rents at 1,500, a buyer would go crazy for, because he pays $5,000 right now to cash flow $500 forever and get all this equity and debt pay down over time. Banger deal, right? Wholesales, the only reason a buyer would buy like a wholesale, if the deal's in a good enough condition and there's minimal work, they're going to be able to do the work quicker and get it on the market faster. So it's going to save them money and holding costs. So they're going to be willing to take less profit because of the reduced work needed and, obviously the holding cost there. Also, guys, I want to take some time to talk about the agency. If you guys want to apply, it'll be the first link in the bio. Essentially, what we do inside of our agency is we set up wholesale businesses for you. So we don't do any type of mentorship. We don't do any type of course selling. We literally set up all the automations for you, set up your systems, set up your marketing, craft you a detailed plan about how you're going to run your business and your operating procedures. And then from there, depending on your time budget and also your financial budget, we craft you a marketing plan. And then from there, you'll generate leads. And then we'll even teach you the entire business, teach you how to do the acquisitions process, underwriting, all of that. It's basically like an all-in-one solution to getting started with real estate if you want like actual guided assistance. And then since we're so hands-on with it, we do offer a guarantee for you to close your first deal in 90 days. So if you have any interest in that, just book a call below. But yeah, guys, other than that, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you click the sub button to know when the next one drops, and I will see you guys in the next video.